I want to give you 5 things to stay away from when you discipline your children. I think it's worth stopping and thinking about how we approach a discipline session and make sure that we're not doing things that would be unbiblical or unwise. And I do hear often from moms that they say that they can't imagine giving their child a spanking, or as I like to call it, a shabbat, a Hebrew word in the Bible for this, but because of the way that they were disciplined as a child. And I think, unfortunately, it's so sad that that has happened in so many homes throughout the world. But just because something was done wrongly doesn't mean we should give up on it altogether. You know, you have a bad meal in the kitchen, it doesn't mean you don't cook again, right? You keep going, you keep moving forward and make corrections. So I'd like to think through a few things that we need to be careful about when we engage in giving our child a loving correction, a painful consequence for when they disobey or when they're disrespectful to us. So the first thing that comes to mind is that we need to be careful not to give a consequence in anger. All right, I'm sure you've been there. You're super upset. Your face is red. You have that, lack of self-control coming. We should not engage in discipline with our children when we are in that mindset. That is not gentle. That is not loving. That is not going to be good for your relationship. So if that happens, don't give that consequence. Give them a different one, maybe a timeout, walk away, get your heart right first. But we should not engage in anger because that is not the right way to approach. It's unwise, it's unloving, it's unbiblical. Okay, the second thing I think we need to be careful about when we give this consequence out to our children is to do this inconsistently. What I mean by that is one day they disobey us. We tell them to go clean up their toys or to come here, and they disobey, and so we give them a consequence. But the next day, we don't. And so every day it's confusing for our children. They don't know what kind of mom they're getting. They don't really know, and so they might test boundaries when the rules and the guidelines are not clear. So you need to be careful, and I need to be careful that we are consistent and faithful so that if this happens, then a consequence occurs. And then with that, the third thing is that we clearly define for them what results in this sort of discipline. I've seen charts come out. I know I have sat down my children and say, if you do these things, then there will be a consequence. And when they're little, right, we can give that warning and even to tell them right then and there, if you keep having this attitude, you are choosing the consequence. I said that a lot. If you don't listen to mommy right now, you're going to choose a consequence. And then it's up to them. It's still hard for us to follow through. It's still hard for us not to be upset, but we want to make it clear to them that it's their choice and this is the expectation we have for them. And when that's clear, it's a lot easier for them because they know, I made that decision. The fourth thing is to be careful about spanking our children in excess. Every single thing that happens should not result in a spanking. They spill their milk, there's accidents, there's just kid stuff, silliness, right? There's potty training incidences. There's all kinds of things that don't necessarily mean they need to go in and have this discipline session. So we just need to be careful that not everything turns into that. The fifth thing would be maybe I don't know. All of these are important, but one thing I've very much stressed in my household is that we need to make sure we reconcile. So if we engage in discipline and we don't reconcile with them, that's something I'm saying, be careful. Reconciliation, coming back together, restoring the relationship, right? Sometimes children are upset that they got this discipline. Sometimes we're upset with them still for what they did. But we need to come back together to give a hug, to explain to them we love them, and to also expect them to reconcile with us. We don't want to make them pay anymore. We don't want to walk out of that and give them the silent treatment or still be upset and angry and keep our distance from them. We need to make sure we come back together, that the discipline is over, our relationship is mended, we love them, we give them a hug, and we say, it's over, let's move forward. So be careful about engaging in discipline and then just, well, I'm still kind of mad at this kid. You know, we don't want to do that. We want to come back together. We want that forgiveness to be so clear. We want to mend the relationship with our children. And I think these 5 things can really help us in making sure that we discipline in a way that honors God.